Then Ashley asked, "How's your chest?" Marge replied, "The mark is fading, but I can't let David see my chest for another 3 or 4 days. I've been changing in the bathroom and putting flannels on at night." "He hasn't noticed?" Ashley asked. "You'd better be careful. Has he said anything about the lack of S?" "No, but I have to take care of that." Then she giggled and said, "I was thinking, I never had a chance to do this before, but I was thinking about David Wednesday night. I never had 2 guys in the same day before." Ashley said, "I've done that a couple of times. It's a real turn-on. Just make sure you buy a before you do David." Marge said that she would, and then they said their goodbyes. "I don't think so, Marges." And Ashley was too. Should I tell Mike and risk ruining his life? That was just wrong. Then I remembered thinking that he might be a bastard for knowing and not telling me. He would want to know, just like me. I would give him a copy of this recording after I took care of Perez. The next call of interest was again Ashley, from earlier this morning. Their conversation had a different tone from Monday's. Marge called and said, "Hi, Ashley." Ashley picked up on Marge's tone and asked what was wrong. David noticed that I was wearing flannels and changing in the bathroom with the door closed. He asked me about it when he got in bed. I told him that I was cold, but Ashley, the room was hot as hell. I was sweating all night in those heavy flannels. I don't think he believed me, but he didn't say anything else. Then David wanted to have S, but I couldn't risk him seeing the bruise. Sunday I had pulled the night light out, but David had fixed it, so I told him no again. He was hurt. I tried to make it up by telling him that I would F him hard Wednesday, but he didn't seem to care. We lay there with this wall between us. And worse, I just kept thinking about Will, not David. I closed that file and saved it. I didn't need to hear anymore. Digging through the internet, I ordered AS detection kit and had it shipped to my office. Next, I drove over to the motel. Perez's car was by his room, but it was lunchtime. I went over to the bar. Mary wasn't working, but I saw from the front window that Perez was in a booth, looking at the menu. I figured that now was good. I walked to his motel door and knocked. I didn't get an answer, so I used the key to open the door. This time I ignored the bed and walked into the other room to see his laptop on and showing a QuickBooks accounting screen. I pulled my thumb drive out, inserted it in his computer, and installed the keylogger program. This time, I didn't bother with screen captures, but checked all emails, all websites, all keystrokes, and all data, which included the accounting data. If he was doing anything that I could use to hurt him, I'd be able to find it. Next, I enabled his remote desktop client and checked that the motel wireless had the right port open. It did. Finally, I went to one of the websites that offered a free light version of remote control software and created the account at his domain name. I installed their software, which would allow me to take control of his laptop from anywhere, and I'd have his desktop on my monitor. The site records IP addresses of everyone who logs in, and so will show that it was installed from the motel network. I removed the icons from the desktop and system tray, as well as from the start menu. Then I brought up his QuickBooks screen and got the hell out of there. I went back to the office and worked a few hours. Getting home in a good mood, I was jovial and helpful to the kids and Marge. She looked worried when I first got home, but relieved after seeing that I was acting normally. Around 10, she said that it was time for her to go to bed. I told her that I had some work to finish and would be up in a while. She answered, "Great. I'll see you in the morning." Yeah, just great, I thought. Get enough sleep so you can service your lover tomorrow. I had a shitload of data to deal with. Today's footage, all the files from the bugs, all the files from Willie's and Marge's computers, and the phone bug data. But it wasn't going to be tonight. I did download the data from her car recorder and put it back in Marge's car. She was either sleeping or pretending to be when I got in bed. I got as far away from her as possible and went asleep thinking, tomorrow's the day. Marge was up ahead of me Wednesday morning, which was fine with me. I was sick to my stomach knowing that she was going to cheat on me again today, and that I would have to watch the recording of her pleasuring her lover and being pleasured. When I went in the kitchen, she was finishing making breakfast. I noticed that she was fully dressed for work, which was another first. She said, "Just in time, sweetie, and good morning." I grunted and reached for the coffee. After I got a cup and had a drink or two, I turned back to her to find her staring at me with a confused look on her face. I said, "Sorry, was still asleep on me feet. Or is that my feet?" She said, Okay, you're just usually a morning person. Now you know how I feel most mornings. I didn't reply, just sat down and took a sip. The kids came in, and she began serving breakfast. I always help her serving when she cooks, but not today. I didn't look at her but saw out of the corner of my eye that she kept taking quick glances at my face. When she put my plate in front of me, she paused and stared at me. I neglected to notice while looking at the door. As I was about to leave, she stepped in front of me with a worried look and said quietly, "David, is there something wrong?" I stared at her blankly and said, "Not that I know of." I hugged her, suddenly affectionately. She melted into my arms, relieved, and said, "I'm glad." I was worried. I said, "I love you and I can't imagine living without you. And there is no other woman in this world that I want to make love to." I waited and then added, "I hope that you feel the same way about me." She instantly stiffened and made a sobbing noise while holding me tighter, said, "Of course I do." Then she whispered, "And I plan on wearing you out tonight." I pulled away forcefully and walked out without looking back at her. I drove to the motel and downloaded the data while waiting for Marge to go to work. I got back home a little after 9 a.m. I spent the entire time in the parking lot wondering how I was going to get through this day. How could I act normally around the S? What I was going to do? How am I going to be able to watch the video of her with another man? Downloading the data from the bugs took some time. I wandered around the house aimlessly while it copied. There was just no way I was going to be able to talk to Marge tonight. Or even worse, get into bed with her. I started with his emails. After a couple hours, I learned some basic facts. He had 3 companies that bought products cheaply and resold them to the local military base, to several Fortune 500 companies, and to the federal government. It appeared that he was screwing 5 women besides my wife, the busy little a-hole. He had a number of emails concerning the quality of the products and specifications. I saved a couple of emails for further follow-up. Not much so far, but it was a start. Next, I copied his 3 QuickBooks company files and used the keylogger program to find his logins and passwords. I didn't find much useful there either. I'm not a CPA. I did notice under expenses that he had 6 company credit cards. He even noted the card number in the notes for each card. Listening to his phone conversations took a long time, but proved to be well worth it. I began to see some correlations between some emails and what he was saying on the phone. One call was from somebody in the base's shipping and receiving department. He said that he had a problem getting the last shipment processed because of the duplicate serial numbers. Worse, all future shipments must have unique serial numbers. Perez was pissed about that and made it painfully clear that he wasn't happy. The guy insisted that the new auditing software would flag all kinds of things and that they had to be more careful. When Perez hung up, he went online and purchased 2 specialty printers and supplies. Another call was from a supplier who wanted Perez to buy from him. After a lot of beating around the bush, Willie Boy finally said, "Look, the qualification process takes forever. That is just the way it is. But I like you and want to help." The chief of procurement for the base is the guy who approves vendors, but he takes the advice of his procurement agent. "I can get him to help you, but it will cost you." The guy sounded defeated when he asked, "How much?" "For $5,000 cash, you can sell $100,000 worth of stuff to the base. And to help you out, you can raise your price by 2% without any problem. Future orders won't cost quite as much." The guy sounded a little happier. "Okay, how do I get the money to you?" "Let me know when you have it ready. I'll tell you where to meet me. 2 days later, your bid will be accepted. Thanks. I'll call as soon as possible." His next call was from a guy in the base procurement section, which was where Marge worked. The guy gave Perez the amounts that several competitors had submitted on several contracts. Other than that, he received 4 calls of interest, all from his S. One of the calls was from my wife. It was the same conversation that I had heard from the car recorder. Taking a break, I decided that it was time to get a bit more organized. So I set up Marge and Will folders on the flash drive and subfolders for video, audio, data, and miscellaneous stuff. I moved everything I had into the folders and made a backup. It was time to call George. He commiserated with me for a few minutes, and then I told him that I needed him in his official capacity. He was all ears. When I finished, he said, "Excellent. Although I can't use your evidence in court, it will unofficially make my ongoing investigation easier." We have been looking into shipping and receiving for a couple of months now. Inventory goes missing, sometimes whole shipments. The paperwork just doesn't show anything wrong, but physical inventories show duplicate serial numbers and below-spec materials. I need to see what you have as soon as possible,